Hello everyone, my name's Danielle. I'm a writer, I'm a reader, I'm a student, and I am also on the asexual spectrum. I wanted to talk about how my experience affects my writing because it very much does. This will also double as me advocating for asexual representation within literature. We are getting the scraps. Pretty dense video that is all about asexuality within literature. So first, I wanted to talk about my own identity and also give you some definitions as well. If anyone were to ask, frankly, I'm just tired of having to explain my experiences and my identity to strangers. I will rather just toss out the asexual spectrum label. For you, I'll make an exception. So, asexuality is defined as someone who doesn't experience any sexual attraction. However, asexuality can also be used as an umbrella term. The most accurate label for me, demisexual. It means that I require a deep and emotional bond with someone before my brain can even consider attraction. However, this is a lot of new words for someone who is just new to the community that has known nothing previously of it. Because of that reason, I tell people that I'm on the ace spectrum, and I leave it at that. Really, this should go without saying, but there are a ton of ace people with a myriad of differing opinions. I personally don't really care for labels. Doesn't mean that someone else won't as well. If someone tells you that they identify with something, people find value in what they call themselves, and we should respect that as well. Throughout this whole video, unless explicitly stated, I am not speaking for the asexual community as a whole, just for me and what I would like to see in literature. By the way, asexual and demisexual, those are not the only two terms in the asexuality umbrella. Don't even touch on how sexual attraction is different and nowhere less valuable than romantic attraction. That's how you can find an asexual man falling in love with a woman, meaning that he would be heteroromantic, but he could be asexual. Do you see what I mean? I get tired listening to my own voice, having to explain everything, hence my personal exasperation. And I am hyper aware of how this sounds to older generations or people who know nothing about the community. Oh my goodness. And if English is not your first language, in this video, I will be using the terms ace and asexual interchangeably because in the asexual community, it's commonly understood that these terms are used as umbrella unless explained otherwise. So let's talk about why we need more representation. I have an interesting relationship with relationships, but I grew up in a private Christian school that heavily imposed purity culture. I thought that I was just the perfect angel, you know? I never had any sinful and dirty thoughts about anyone. I'm just naturally this amazing. I had to learn how purity culture shaped my view on relationships and the toxicity of that all. I believe that purity culture was the reason that I was sex repulsed. I think that it still contributes to that, but I do think that something else contributing to it was also me being ace. And I was told when I learned about the label asexual, which I'm very thankful for, to learn about it so young. Tumblr has its down moments, but god damn it, that actually did help me a lot. And it took me quite some time for me to finally feel comfortable using that label for myself. Like, I cannot tell you the number of nights I sat on the bedroom floor confused, thinking that something was wrong with me, that I was shattered. Whether that was because of the purity culture or because I was ace, the two went hand in hand, unfortunately. What a hell of an identity crisis. But eventually, I settled on the term asexual, and I felt at home until I had a crush. Huh? I thought I was ace. That meant I didn't get crushes. That was the whole meaning of the label. It took a couple more years for me to even find the label of demisexuality. Give me another few years as well to finally feel comfortable calling it, and then give it another couple years until I'm sick of labels and I'm just doing my own thing. Do you know how much time I would have saved if I just knew?
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a reader and I'm asexual and most likely aromantic. And this is kind of like my little bit take and discussion on why I believe like there should be more asexual and aromantic representation in specifically books, and why I want to see that more as a reader. Not a lot of asexual characters. There's not a lot of aromantic characters. We often found, literature as a form of escape, of fantasy. As I was that kid, I started reading books at a very young age, and You know, a lot of the books I read are still about, you know, romance and fantasy and all that. And even if I look at my entire life and I go back, let me list all the characters and all the asexual characters and people like me, I can name 3. One isn't technically canon. It's canon in the show. Rafael Santiago from Shadowhunters. I believe her name is Kifa from the Hunt the Flame trilogy. She was great and all. You know, loved her a lot. All the, you know, every time I saw her in the book, I was like, yes, she was a side character. And the third one, I don't even know who she is. I don't even know what show, what fandom. Honestly, it was just a little clip I saw once on my For You page. I think it was Legends of Tomorrow. I think she's confirmed that she was asexual. But that's all I know. And it's no one's fault. Hundreds of years of just how society has been run, and so I'll kind of see this in books and all that. Like, love is meant to be romantic love, that is. That's the thing that completes you and makes you whole. But when you keep emphasizing that message and not leaving room for anything else, you're taking out, you know, all the possibility for just platonic relationships. When asexual kids, teenagers growing up, older adults growing later in life, you're thinking I have to be with somebody or I have to feel this thing way about somebody, but you don't. And so you're left with thinking you're not complete. You're thinking something's wrong with you. Honestly, as a reader, you know, I've read a lot of romance books, you know, I love them. Again, there's that disconnect with the books, but I'll still enjoy romance books. But not gonna lie, if I had to be honest, as a reader, not a lot of people deserve to be in a relationship. Or what I mean by that is, like, you know, one thing I do appreciate as an ace reader is when I see writers write intimacy and vulnerability and companionship and camaraderie. One thing I definitely do wish I see more as a reader is more platonic relationships. I think it's very underrated because it's just as satisfying. I think a lot of people, if they read more relationships like that, they don't have to wonder, you know, every time they open a book, like, is something wrong with? And again, like, asexuality, like, you are not broken. Aromantic people, you are not broken. We definitely are complete loves and, you know, all around us and in this world. And I just think that world should reflect it a bit more.
These are tips for allosexual writers. This goes to any community, and you would figure this would be common sense. However, common sense is not so common. I mean, you're already doing a fantastic job watching this video, but it's important to do some basic preliminary research, at least when you're first starting. Acquaint yourself with the community's language. Like, as I'm saying everything, you can tell there is a lot of allosexual, gray romantic, demi-romantic, sex-averse versus sex-repulsed language and definitions have been firmly established within the asexual community. Additionally, there are things that are changing, so it's important to know what the hell is going on. Additionally, I would encourage you to not just research about asexuality, but to talk to asexual people and about their experiences. Comment down below if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer. There's Reddit forums, Tumblr posts. Those may not be considered the most god-tier sources. It's just important to be able to talk to real people. Please, for the love of God, make their asexually canonical. Look at the ace community is desperate for representation. We are digging for crumbs. I'm begging. And this kind of conflicts my last point, but I don't think you have to explicitly state that a character is asexual if it isn't consistent with the setting. I'll use my book as an example. My book is greatly inspired by 18th century Mediterranean, additionally also the Philippines. The setting was inspired by the artwork I saw in my family's home. It does not make sense for my character to say, I am an asexual woman. And asexual wasn't even considered a possibility to exist until the 1890s. However, I am making asexual representation really apparent by having this character explicitly state she does not feel any sexual attraction to anyone. She never has and never will. Boom. Just like that. Canonical ace rep that is consistent with the setting. Wow, it's so f***ing easy, y'all. Number 5, when in doubt, get a sensitivity reader. Sensitivity readers are those that read over your work, specifically to find out things that might be considered offensive, microaggressions, so that when you publish it, you're publishing it with more ease of mind. I don't think there's any shame in having to pay someone to be a sensitivity reader. I praise people that do. Everyone makes mistakes, even allies. So yes, when I say, when in doubt, get a sensitivity reader. And yes, I know writers don't make a ton of money. God knows I wish that were the case. Or you can get beta readers that fall on the asexual spectrum and you could ask them specific questions. Obviously wouldn't be as refined as a sensitivity reader, but that is a free option. So this is some tips to non-asexual writers. Number 1, asexuality is not something to be cured. I am of the belief that asexuality should never be treated as an inherent flaw or something to be cured of. Already go through this all time from loved ones and friends, medical professionals as well, who insist that something is wrong with them. God forbid. This even flatters the idea of corrective. Number 2, asexuality is not the same as celibacy. Asexual people can have sex. Surprise. A celibate person is someone who actively chooses to abstain from sex. Asexual people may just not care for it. Someone who is asexual could actually be demisexual, like me. Demisexual people would very well be interested in having sex. Do you see how weird I get when I talk about sex? This is how you know that I am asexual. And if you are writing an asexual character, I would encourage you to not make that their only personality trait. Asexuality is only one part of a person's identity. It's kind of to revolve one label around a character's entire personality. Asexual people are mothers, their fathers, their romantic partners as well. If your only asexual character is a side character that won't stop talking about how asexual they are, Number 4, there is a drastic difference between writing an asexual character versus writing asexual people's story for them. I don't know where the line is. The way that I think of it is by any other minority group. There are black characters in my book. However, you'll be hell-pressed if you ever find me writing a short story about the struggles about being black in America. If I do, you have a moral duty to punch me in the face. Number 5, if your only asexual character in the book is the villain, if they are villainous because they are not attracted to anyone else, look, I'm not evil because of my asexuality, I'm evil despite of it. Next, we are going to be talking about some problematic tropes, oftentimes includes asexual people. The robot, cyborg, non-human, asexual character. I love fantasy, I love sci-fi too, but if your only asexual representation is a robot is a machine. Like, a robot obviously wouldn't be able to feel any sort of sexual attraction. And that's like me saying my phone is asexual. I guess I'm not wrong. It's different if you say that one alien asexual compared to all of the other aliens in their species that are allos. However, if the whole species as a whole are asexual, and also this ties back to the last point of a lot of the dehumanizing that a lot of people deal with. 2, infantilization. Just because someone is ace doesn't mean that they're ignorant about sex or that they're prudish. Argue that a lot of asexual people know a lot about sex because 1, we either face heavy scrutiny from allo peers that we didn't want to be the odd one out. Why in the world do we equate sexual experience with maturity? We live in a world that prioritizes sex at every corner. We are hyper aware of it because we're exhausted. Not all asexual people are prudish. I may not be the best spokesperson here because in real life, I am actually pretty prudish, you can tell. Even though I fit the stereotype, I have seen asexual community in general does not favor the prudish trope. Asexual people are heartless characters who will never experience love. Even if they are aromantic, which means that they don't experience romantic attraction, I'm sure that there are other people who have incredibly close relationships. Platonic friendships are incredibly important. Familial ones, professional ones. All of these relationships are so undervalued in this world where all we do is just put so much pressure on romance. So number 5, aromantic and asexuality do not automatically go hand in hand together. Someone can be biromantic and asexual, meaning that they are romantically attracted to 2 or more genders, but experience no sexual attraction. Aromantic and asexual, the 2 identities are often lumped together because it's easier for outsiders understanding. We as a society oftentimes assume that romance and sex have to go hand in hand, and if not, it's better when they go hand in hand. For a lot of people that may be the case, not for everyone. Number 6 is that it's not just women who are asexual. There are men, BIPOC, etc., that are asexual. Women are like meant to be prudish and saving themselves from marriage. Purity culture. But hey, a lot of men can be asexual as well. Non-binary people are asexual. Ace people are more than capable of feeling empathy, feeling kindness, and showing compassion to others. Romance is not what makes someone a good person. Do you see the amount of toxic allo men out there in the world. All asexual people are sad and lonely. This also feeds into the idea that romance is the end-all be-all for people. Not for a lot of others, not for me as well. Ace people can have incredibly fulfilling relationships that are just platonic, that are just familial, that are just professional. Like I said, a person doesn't experience all of their attraction and their love from just one person. I feel like people are more than willing to share all of themselves to other people. Asexual people have great and fulfilling and long life-lasting friendships with people because a lot of asexual people do not ascribe how one relationship is more important than the other. Asexual people are not inherently destined to a life of misery, suffering, and hopeless solitude. Although allos will still find plenty of resources and perhaps learn from the above section of the video about asexuality. So the final part is actually just two writers, other asexual writers. Now that they're gone, let's get to work on planning this asexual agenda. This is going to be my own personal advice and my own personal experience. Yes, I know asexuality is a spectrum. So this is my personal advice to writers that are also in the asexual community. First one that I really want to say is that it's okay to be confused. I was confused too. I'm still confused. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Easier said than done. You literally cannot do it. So I'm tired of dealing with the shame and the fear that comes along with writing romance from an allo character's perspective. Fiction does not require romance for it to be good. I'm someone that does not like reading romance for very reason. I find romance just kind of eh. When I was younger, specifically when I was a teenager and I first started this channel, I thought that all genre fiction needed a romantic subplot. Like it was just another thing to check off in the list. Like you have a conflict and then you also have a romantic subplot. If you don't want to add romance to it, don't need to take that into consideration if it is practically if you were submitting it to like traditional publishing houses and they wanted a romantic subplot. Do what you gotta do. In general, your art does not need a romantic subplot to be considered good. There are tons of more important things in someone's life without romance, and as asexual people, I'm assuming you believe the same thing. Tons of people live happy and fulfilled lives without once experiencing an ounce of romance or sex. It's not required. I personally want to see more romanticization of platonic friendships. Reiterate that platonic friendships are not less than. In my book, I would argue that the most important relationship is between two platonic life partners. This was spurred on by the frustration I saw that platonic friendships were seen as less than. I obviously don't think that. I harbor a lot of resentment to that idea. Next one, lean into your own experience. This is specifically for me because I fall on the demi spectrum, but I relate most heavily to the slow burn. Because that is the only situation which I have experienced firsthand, I'm great at writing it. Sure, not every other person in the world has this weird checklist that my brain has to tick off before my brain can even be like, you're not half bad. Yeah, I don't think that matters so much, and my majority allo audience probably appreciates the slow burn because slow burns are not just an asexual trope, it's a trope form that everyone can enjoy. Additionally, if you are going to write about the struggles about being asexual, lean into your own experience, or like a platonic life partner finds a romantic partner, the interrelational conflict, the kind of push and pull, the miscommunication, something that a lot of asexual people can unfortunately relate to, that makes for a ton of interesting internal conflict. It also gives voice to a community who often can't see themselves in entertainment. I put research with a question mark at the end. Don't research necessarily why people fall in love, because the way that I personally understand love is very mechanical. My understanding of romance and sex is not exactly the most romantic or sexy. Some advice to get into allo people's headspace: read erotica. If you want to write from their point of view, you gotta know where they're coming from. It doesn't have to be erotica. It could just be like a rom-com book. Read smut. Read erotica. The chick lit as well. The cafe AUs, turn novels. Read what you don't know so that you can write it. Reading builds empathy. Reading makes you a better writer. You're more than likely to have an allo CP or beta rather than an asexual one. Use them. Use them. Oh my goodness. The amount of times my asexual critique partners that came in clutch. One of my main characters is allo so that's incredibly difficult as well for me. Ask questions, keep asking, bug them, get their attention. Ask beta readers very specific questions about how they think the romance is working. You should be doing this already anyway, but tailor it so that you, as an asexual who have never experienced romance or sex, can understand. As a CP, I have had to bite my tongue on multiple occasions because a big part of my story is emphasizing the importance of platonic friendships. In my book, I have had Allo people with well intentions tell me that they see my Allo character's affection for his platonic friend as romance. I abhor it. The first assumption of any type of affection towards anyone else, romance or sex. The heteronormativity, the allonormativity, despise it. My very core, I bite my tongue. They are giving me a chance to see into how my allo audience would interpret that text. I personally still find a lot of value in hearing what my allo CPs have to say about the perceived romance within a platonic friendship, because it gives me insight into how my allo audience will react, so then I can tailor my writing to any sort of outcome that I'm looking for. I tweeted out quite a while ago, I'm making video on why we need more asexual representation. So RM Phyllis says, ace characters whose asexuality has zero bearing on the plot. The fact that they're asexual only comes up when they're making shitty puns about it. Just seeing characters who are just casually asexual, I would very much like to see that as well. Collagen Thief, they've said they would like to see more representation of sex-positive asexuality. I crave disabled asexual rep as well. That destroys the of course you're ace, you're disabled hatred that abounds. If you wanted to see an asexual content creator, they make videos about BDSM, but their kink is completely devoid of any sort of sex. Evie Lapine is a great source. He says, I'm not asexual, but I would be very interested in a range of asexual and aromantic diversity. Speaking of, let's talk about some book recs. So, these are books that I have actually read, and no, I have not read many asexual books before. Asexual books are hard to come by. First one, The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. Even though it's not canon, it's within the asexual community, it's kind of understood that there's like a demi-head canon that Katniss is demisexual or demi-romantic. You can see that she only starts to have a crush on Peeta once she already has a close emotional bond with him. Summerbird Blue is a book about a teenage girl moving to Hawaii, and she is struggling with grief while also trying to understand her sexuality and the labels she wants to apply to it, or the lack thereof. Next one, Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Now, the main character is bisexual. However, one of the most important side characters is on the asexual spectrum. And the next one is just a shameless plug. Soon to be my book. One day, my book will be published and it will be God tier representation of asexuality. Awesome book recommendations on asexuality. If you guys have any other asexual book recommendations, please. I want to see more. I've been filming for an hour and a half. This video is gonna be a long one, but I feel like it's going to be incredibly important and it will provide a lot of resources for people. To all the asexual community, thank you for being here. I am one of you. Thank you to all of the allies as well for joining, for learning. I look forward to reading your guys' asexual representation, and I look forward to the day where there is more asexual representation out in literature. Would not happen if it weren't for you guys watching. So thank you. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Danielle. You can subscribe down below. I am trying to upload videos every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All of my social media links are in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.